Madam Toastmaster, Madam President, and fellow Toastmasters, thank you. This evening, I would like to introduce you to budgeting. I don't mean at quite a basic level, but it is an introduction. So we'll start with, okay, we won't start at all. 5 key points here this evening I'd like to cover. What is budgeting? Where to start? When should we budget? Who should budget? And I suppose the final question, why budget at all? So, let's start with what is budgeting? Oh, go the wrong way. Budgeting, simply put, budgeting is managing, oh, sorry, this is all new to me, so managing your money. So it's pretty much your total income, less all your expenditure. And what you have left is your disposable income, what you have to play with, in essence. You ask, what is income and expenditure? Well, your income is technically any income that comes into your house on a weekly or monthly basis, depending on how you're paid. So it's usually in the form of salary or wages. So I have taken a typical example of a salary being €5,000 a month. And I have looked at the expenditure, typical expenditure that I have to pay. So the first one here is, I'm sure everyone's very familiar with, the mortgage. So I've set the mortgage at €1,000. ESB, heat, light and phone, your general utility bills, €200 a month. Car repayments, €500 a month. Saving for a rainy day or putting some money aside to go in a pension, €300 a month. And then general food, kid, and general maintenance, groceries, the whole shebang, €2,000 a month. So what we get here in essence is your €5,000 income, less your €4,000 here in expenditure, is what's left. This is your disposable income. And you have to ask yourself, well, what can I do with this €1,000? That leads us on to the question, well, where do we start? Understanding your finances and spending is so important, like we've just looked at here, knowing what you have actually left to spend. We all have to have a reason to start with, and it's usually because there is something we want or we need that's outside the day-to-day run-of-the-mill general expenditure. So that is a typical family holiday. Someone might like a new kitchen or even, golf membership. But we have to afford this, I suppose we could call it luxuries, within the confines of our disposable income. For example, that €1,000 you have left there. So, what's current in the budgeting world? Okay, well, we are all very familiar with the leading supermarkets. Dunnes Stores, Tesco's, Lidl and Aldi. These guys, they're targeting their consumers or customers day in, day out, saying that they can save you money. But can they though? We're very familiar, actually, we have a person from Portarlington on the Lidl ad, and she's saying, okay, well, you know, Lidl or Aldi, they can save me €40 per week on groceries. This in a month accumulates to €160. But is it? You see, you have to look here and you need to compare what you're actually getting. You have to look at the size, the quantity, the quality, and the value for money you're actually getting somewhere else and what you're actually paying for. So I've put 2 key points here at the bottom, the location and accessibility. And you might say to yourself, well, what exactly have they to do with budgeting? An example, I live out in Ballyfin. Let's pretend there's a local shop. They have a jar of coffee on sale in that local shop, which costs €2. Now, we have Lidl here in Portlaoise. They have that same jar or equivalent jar of coffee for €1.40. Great. I am going to drive to Lidl to get that jar of coffee for €1.40 because I'm actually saving 60 cents by going to Lidl. But am I? I have to go outside, I have to get into that car, I have to drive to Portlaoise, manoeuvre the roundabouts, and get to Little. Park my car, luckily it's free of charge. Go in, queue, get my jar of coffee. Most of the time, another quick impulse buy, and drive the whole way home to Ballyfin to enjoy my cup of coffee. But what does that cost me? Probably €3 in petrol. So now the jar of coffee has suddenly become €4.30. Whereas if you'd just gone and bought it, walked to the local shop, it would have only ever cost you €2. So just think about that. That's why logically think about, compare actually what you're getting and the value for money. When should we budget? Well, incredibly, we budget subconsciously every day of our lives. In every transaction we make, we think, well, do I have enough money to pay for this in my bank account? Don't we all think that when you're going to buy something? Do I have the money to pay for it? You don't have to be a qualified accountant. Ask any homemaker or parent. They are the real professionals at budgeting, in my opinion. So, who should budget? Everybody needs to budget. From the government running a country to a child in a sweet shop, understanding which sweet they can or can't afford. It's all about how much you can afford at the end of the day. Out of that €1,000, how much money you can afford. One of my final points is, why budget? Well, we must budget so we don't get into financial difficulty. If we overspend, well then we're in bother. For every financial transaction you make in life, the benefit must outweigh the cost. So there's no point in costing you more than you're actually going to get value from it. Many companies went bust over the last few years. Their overheads were too high and they did not have enough money to pay the bills. Look at Anglo-Irish Bank. They lent out too much. It was all going out the door and not enough money coming in the door. See, the cost outweighed the benefit of it. A good typical topical example at the moment is Angela Kearns in rehab, getting €240,000 a year. A lot of money going out the rehab door, you know, and a lot of people working hard to get it in there. So, quick tip of the day I want to give you as an accountant. I would suggest to people, if you have just to manage your money, open a current account. Set up a direct debit from your existing account of say €300 a month, and then set up all your direct debits from that account. So as we've seen earlier, it was typically €200 a month you were spending. You need to calculate that. Put in 300. So then you're comfortable that you know all your utility bills are going to be paid out of that account each month. It's covered. This way you know you have enough to meet the payments at the end of every month. Conclusion. There is nothing wrong with having short arms and long pockets. I know. Know your limits on what you can and can't afford. Manage your finances, guys. And budgeting, believe it or not, helps to reduce stress. All important word, reduce stress. So budget, budget, budget. And guys, be happy. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Count pennies and the pounds will count themselves. Madam Toastmaster, Madam President, thank you guys.